First of all, Mr. President, we don't work for you. I don't work for you. My job is to cover you, not fawn over you or rip you. Just report on you. It's called being fair and balanced, Mr. President, yet it is fair to say you're not a fan when that balance includes stuff you don't like to hear or facts you don't like to have questioned. You're only human, I get that. Who likes to be corrected? But you are the president. It comes with the job, just like checking what you say and do comes with my job. After all, I'm not the one who said tariffs are a wonderful thing. You are. Just like I'm not the one who said Mexico would pay for the wall. You did. Just like I'm not the one who claimed that Russia didn't meddle in the 2016 election. You did.
Fox has changed, and my worst polls have always been from Fox. There's something going on at Fox, I'll tell you right now, and I'm not happy with it.
Promises made, promises kept.
He clearly is a believer in state-run television and views Fox as that they are supposed to be effectively propagandists for Donald Trump.
The president making clear to fact-check him is to be all but dead to him. There are no grays, no middle ground. You're either all in or you're just out. Loyal on everything or not to be trusted on anything. Which could explain the president himself this week bashing Fox News yet again, urging his supporters to stop watching the channel, to quote tweet, "Fox isn't working for us anymore." Well, first of all, Mr. President, we don't work for you. I don't work for you. My job is to cover you, not fawn over you or rip you. Just report on you. Now, I'm sorry you don't like these facts being brought up, but they are not fake because I did. What would be fake is if I never did. If I ignored all the times you said you loved your old Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, until you didn't. Had no plans to dump your Homeland Security Secretary until you did. Called Chinese President Xi Jinping an enemy just last week and a great leader this week. Sometimes you don't even wait that long. Last week, you expressed an appetite for background checks before arguing just hours later our background checks are already strong. These aren't fake items. They're real items, and you really said them. Just like you never paid to silence a porn star until it turns out you did. Never ordered your former White House counsel Don McGahn to fire Bob Mueller until we learned you tried. Fake is when it's wrong, Mr. President, not when it's unpleasant. Just like it isn't and wasn't fake when you said the Access Hollywood tape wasn't real when it was, or that you inherited a depression from Barack Obama when you didn't, or that you ripped quantitative easing when he was president, but are furious the Federal Reserve isn't doing the same for you now that you're president. You're entitled to your point of view, Mr. President, but you're not entitled to your own set of facts.
And I think Fox is making a big mistake.
So it turns out that one guy is behind a significant amount of the carnage that we're seeing in the Amazon rainforest. His name is Stephen Schwarzman. He's a top donor to President Trump and Mitch McConnell, and he's the CEO of Blackstone, a huge U.S. investment firm. I reported at The Intercept that Schwarzman and his company Blackstone have helped facilitate a boom in agribusiness in the Amazon. They're doing this by financing a transit port and a commercial highway that runs deep into the rainforest. Those projects make it much easier and more profitable for farming and mining companies to export goods from the area. The resulting agribusiness surge is driving the destruction of the Amazon as more rainforest is being burned to make room for growing grain or soybeans. When I asked Blackstone about the work they financed, they made the argument that actually it's good for the environment because the port allows farm exports to be transported to other places by boat instead of on trucks, which cuts carbon emissions. And yes, great, that's true. But it also reveals the self-destructive insanity of the capitalist view of the world. To firms like Blackstone, the only question is how grain from the Amazon can be exported more efficiently, not whether the Amazon should be destroyed to make way for agribusiness. On the other side of the debate is everybody who's worried about our continued ability to support life on this planet. The Amazon needs to be preserved in order to stave off a climate apocalypse, and developing the region with ports and highways undermines that, and it's not even profitable in the long term. The farms created by destroying the Amazon can only grow crops for about 10 to 15 years before they turn into equatorial desert, and new land needs to be cleared. But it's all about short-term profits. Stephen Schwarzman is one of the world's richest men. In 2018, he was paid at least $568 million in 1 year, which was actually a drop in pay from the $786 million he made the year before. He's given over $10 million to Mitch McConnell's superPAC since 2016, and he hosted a $100,000 a plate fundraiser for Trump, who's a close friend. Meanwhile, his company Blackstone now has more than $500 billion in assets under management. That's an absurd amount of money for one firm to have. And it's been able to grow to that size thanks to policy choices that the US has made, largely with its tax code to encourage the rapid accumulation of capital and to privilege investment funds like Blackstone. Those massive pools of private capital need projects to invest in, and torching the Amazon to convert it to temporary farmland before it becomes desert is as good as any other. So while I've been critical of Blackstone, the real problem is that companies like Blackstone are allowed to exist in the first place. And Blackstone is well aware of that, which is why they pump so much money into the political system, and particularly into the coffers of Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. But there is something that you can do. Stephen Schwarzman probably can't be shamed into saving the planet, but his investors can. And who are they? Blackstone gets a ton of its money from pension funds, university endowments, and charity endowments. And most of that is public information. So if you're getting a pension, or you go to college, or you work at a charity, check to see if they're giving money to Blackstone. Check to see if you're giving money to Blackstone. If you are, you're helping the world burn. Post that information on Twitter, tag me if you want, or otherwise get it into the hands of journalists who can ask if the investor is truly comfortable with how their money is being used. Deforesting the Amazon might make for a nice short-term windfall, but it's long-term suicide.
I'm not taking it back. It's bogus. It's a scam. I talked about how bogus the Electoral College is, and Fox News got really mad.
The Democratic Congresswoman catching heat from the heartland over that Instagram video where she is calling the Electoral College a racist scam.
I mean, what does that kind of thinking do to our public discourse?
Keep in mind, this is sort of the cry of individuals who lost the last election.
I am an Electoral College traditionalist and an evangelist for the Electoral College, and I would be happy to debate anybody about this.
If she went back to a civics class, like in elementary school, and learned about this.
Then, of course, AOC knows best.
Abraham Lincoln only won the presidency because of the Electoral College,
Exactly
and
right.
he was not racist.
But it's true. I'm not taking it back. It's bogus. It's a scam. And like, it's not even about rural voters versus urban voters. That's the thing about the Electoral College. It's actually not about rural voters versus urban voters, because if you cared about the voices of rural voters, you would allow all rural voters to come together and to have their all of their votes counted. But instead, if your state is a blue state and you're a rural voter, your vote is essentially erased. And so for all those like Republicans that are like, oh, blah blah blah, this helps us. What about all of those Republican voters in, for example, New York or in California, who feel like their votes don't matter? Whereas, suppose if they're in a popular vote, everyone's vote would count equally, and we wouldn't give essentially affirmative action to a very few small band of voters. And for all these folks that say the Electoral College is to instill fairness, well, we literally only select one very narrow group to allow their votes to count more than other people? Why don't we give Indian reservations an electoral vote? Why don't we give Puerto Rico and U.S. territories, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of U.S. citizens have zero representation? Why don't we give them an electoral vote? Why don't we accommodate our democracy for Black Americans who were disenfranchised and in many ways continue to be disenfranchised for hundreds of years? We don't do any of that. We only consider fairness for a very like small band, and frankly, this original compromise was to accommodate slave owners. So it's codified and institutional.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Alabama's going to get a piece of it, it looks like.
And it may get a little piece of a great place. It's called Alabama.
I know that Alabama was in the original forecast. They thought it would get it as a piece of it.
Alabama could even be in for at least some very strong wins, and something more than that it could be. This just came up, unfortunately.
But Alabama was hit very hard and was going to be hit very hard. But that was the original chart, and you see it was going to hit not only Florida but Georgia. It could have was going toward the Gulf. That was what was originally projected, and it took a right turn.
Mr. President, you showed us a map earlier, the initial forecast.
Yeah.
It appeared to have been edited or something to include Alabama. Can you explain how that change was made?
No, I just know, yeah. I know that Alabama was in the original forecast. They thought it would get it as a piece of it. It was supposed to go, actually we have a better map than that, which is going to be presented, where we had many lines going directly, many models, each line being a model, and they were going directly through, and in all cases Alabama was hit, if not lightly, in some cases pretty hard. Georgia, Alabama was a different route. They actually gave that a 95% chance probability. It turned out that that was not what happened. It made the right turn up the coast. But Alabama was hit very hard and was going to be hit very hard along with Georgia. But under the current, they won't be.
That map that you showed today looked like it's almost like a Sharpie.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
First of all, we don't do gay weddings or mixed race.
Okay, so why not?
Because of our Christian race. I mean, our Christian belief.
Okay, we're Christians as well. So,
yes,
what in the Bible tells you that?
Well, I don't want to argue my faith.
No, that's fine.
We just don't participate.
Okay.
We just choose not to.
Okay, so that's your Christian belief, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.